Have you ever wondered what happens to a minister's child? What about if the minister was the child's mom? And not just any mom, a rare Samoan female minister. Welcome to Church Chats. My name is Timothy Rose, and I am the minister of St. John's Papatoetoe. Today, we have Paia with us to talk about his ministry training.
Talofa lava. Good to have you, Paia, and I really appreciate you agreeing to this conversation. And you have a special place in the church here. And I think the first thing I need to ask, though, is what exactly is your place in the church here? What's your current designation? What kind of title do we give you, not only at St. John's, but in the Presbyterian Church as a whole?
Thank you, Tim, for having me. Thank you for the opportunity to come and talk with you and talk with our congregation and the wider church. My name is Maugapaia Ropeti-Iupeli, or just Paia for short. For that question, I'm an elder. I guess first, I'm an elder at St. John's Presbyterian Church in Papatoetoe. I've been a Presbyterian since I can remember.
Okay. All right, that's good then. So you're an elder at St. John's Papatoetoe. And now my understanding is that you have a unique position in that you are actually training for ministry.
Yes, well, I went through the national assessment last year. In 2020. I was successful in that assessment. And so they asked me to do a couple more papers just to ready me for the internship. And so I'm doing that this year.
Okay.
I'm almost finished. I've got an exam in a couple of weeks, and then I'm done. Then I go into the internship, which I look at as sort of ministry training proper next year in January.
Okay, so next year in January, you'll become officially an intern minister.
Yes, that is the plan.
Brilliant. And you're going to be doing that where?
At Clevedon Presbyterian Church in Clevedon, in South Auckland.
Yes.
South Auckland.
Yes.
Yeah, so they've accepted me, and they are ready to welcome me, and that is the plan. Very exciting.
Oh, that's cool. You know, it's interesting to me. You said that you've been around the church a long time.
Yes.
So how long is a long time?
Well, I'm 35, so I think about 35 years. My mother was ordained to be a Presbyterian minister before I was born.
Wow.
I'm not sure of the year. I think it was 1982 or 83.
Yes.
And she was at a Presbyterian church in Wellington when she first came out of Knox Theological College.
Okay.
And she was given a scholarship to go to the theological school in Berkeley, in California.
Wow.
And I was born in Berkeley.
Really?
Yes. So that's where my name comes from. It's Maugapaia means holy mountain. And the seminary school that my mother was going to there was at the foot of the holy hills of Berkeley.
My goodness. I did not know there was that American connection there.
Yeah.
Oh, good on you. No wonder I like you so much. Well, that's interesting. So basically, you grew up under a minister.
Yes, I was a minister's kid.
You're a minister's kid, an MK.
Yes.
Wow, what was that like?
I think most ministers' kids would have had, because not only was I a minister's kid, but I was a Samoan minister's kid.
Okay.
So, and not just that, I was a Samoan woman's minister's kid. So
wow.
Even that was even rarer in itself. And I don't know anything else. So as I was growing up in the church, I was just the minister's kid. Sometimes, as I grow older, you hear that ministers' kids are meant to be the example to the other kids in the church. You're not supposed to be too naughty or.
Did you feel an extra pressure?
Not really.
Not really?
That's what, I felt like, it, I don't know, gave me No, I didn't feel any extra pressure. That's just what I was told to do. I have to do whatever my mum says, and yeah,
That's
people
really
of the church
neat.
did treat us differently though because we were ministers' kids.
Okay.
Probably, yeah,
She
got,
didn't want to show favoritism.
yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, that's fascinating. So you've got very unusual. So you're the child of a minister,
Hmm.
a Samoan minister,
Yeah,
a female Samoan minister.
yes.
My goodness. What's your impression then of the multicultural worship in the wider Presbyterian Church?
Because as I was growing up, we were growing up in sort of Samoan language
Okay.
church. So there wasn't too much multicultural. There was just Samoans in the
Just
Samoan
Samoan.
language. Um, and then when I was about a teenager, maybe about 15, 16, we went to a church in Mount Roskill called St. Giles Presbyterian Church
Yes.
with Reverend Douglas Mansell. And that was sort of my first experience with a multicultural uh, congregation.
Oh,
It was a small
interesting.
church right there at the end of Dominion Road. And yeah, that was nice. It was they gave us a space to express ourselves in our culture. I mean, but the main one was sort of the English language and the Presbyterian liturgy. But yeah, when you talk about multiculturalism in our church, it's just a space for different cultures to be able to express themselves.
Yeah. So if I understand you right, you would describe a church as being monocultural if there's just one dominant culture, even if it's Samoan. That's a
Yeah,
monocultural church, or if it's European. So multicultural, of course, includes more cultures than one.
yeah.
And a lot of churches in South Auckland claim to be multicultural.
Hmm.
In your experience, do we have a lot of churches that are multicultural?
Well, we got to define what multicultural is because I think sometimes when we think of monocultural, we think just of language.
Ah,
Okay, so
yeah.
if it's so now they're calling these Samoan churches Samoan language churches, but we don't really see them as monocultural or a Samoan church. They're Samoan language churches.
Okay.
So maybe we could call it like a English language church, but it's multicultural because the people that come from different cultures. But then the actual
Interesting.
practice and the liturgy of itself is still, well, you could say monocultural because it's all still in English. The Presbyterian liturgies are in English, and sometimes in the Samoan churches, those church liturgies are translated into Samoan, but we still follow that. So yeah,
Yeah.
so culture is a definition that I don't think we all have the same definition of.
Yeah.
So when we talk of multicultural, we still have to try and define what that is. But my definition of multicultural is again, it's the people, not necessarily the language, but it's the
Mhm.
people and the again, I talk about that space. There's a space that we can express ourselves in our worship, in our fellowship, um, in our own cultural way.
That's neat. Yeah, no, I can appreciate that definition. Well, let me just change tact a little bit then. So you've grown up in church, you've been exposed to different aspects, watching your mom minister.
Hmm.
Why did you enter the ministry?
If you told me 10 years ago that this is the path that my life would be on,
Hmm.
I wouldn't believe you at all. I think growing up as a minister's kid, especially in a Samoan church, they expect um, one of the minister's kids to just follow the same footsteps of their parent. And so I had heard it before, like, oh, you should go into the ministry, you should go into ministry. And I was like, no, like, you think someone in the ministry is going for the ministry has is the expert on the Bible, lives the as close as you can to a sinless life. It's just almost perfect. We're not going to be perfect. So that was my view on the ministry.
Yep.
But I got married in 2014, and my wife isn't Samoan or Pacific Islander, so she didn't understand the language. And at the time, we were at a Tokelauan church, with Greyland, Tokelauan, the Presbyterian church in Greyland,
Yes.
and that was a language church in Tokelauan, and they had some English. in it as well. But my wife just couldn't engage, and I didn't feel it was fair for her to just come, to ask her to come with me to church when she couldn't understand
Mm-hmm.
the sermon, she couldn't understand the hymns. So it's, if you can't understand it, the question is, are you still worshiping if you can't understand it? She would say that she'll come and she'll do her own worship at the back of the church, because she couldn't understand it. So we decided to try and find another church that, at the very least, is in English
Okay.
and was welcoming. So and that's how we found St. John's.
Okay.
And I think my calling started at the Tokelauan Church.
Okay.
No, it did, definitely did. I was an organist. I'm also a musician, so I've been also a church musician since I think my first time I played at the organ at church was in Fiji when we were living there at St. Andrew's Presbyterian Church in Suva. I played during the offering when I was 10 years old, 11, turning 11. I remember I was playing on this big pipe organ they have. And yes, I've been church musicians for over 20 years. So at the Scrayland Church, I was playing the organ, and I'll sit there, and when you're a church, when you're a musician at church or part of the worship team, sometimes it feels like you're not part of the worship.
Yeah.
You're just the avenue where to bring people into worship. But at times you feel like you're not actually part of the worship. And so I'll sit there and reflect and pray and meditate times during church, and just call to God in my heart, like, God, use me. Yes, you're using me now, you're using my talent now, my music talent, but I know that I can be used more. And I wasn't thinking anything of ministry. Again, this image of what a minister in my head was, again, you had to know the Bible back to front, and read it at least the whole thing once a year from beginning to end. So all these misconceptions in my head of what a minister is, which some of them are true, but
So you, in your mind, you had a checklist of what the minister's supposed to do and be, and as a young person, you're thinking, "Oh, that's not me. That's not what I'm going to do." But it's interesting what you're describing there, because I know exactly what you mean. I've had the privilege and opportunity as well to be part of worship, providing the means for people to worship. And there is that surreal state where you're there, but you're not actually participating in the worship. And yet you're helping to provide it. And I actually understand where you're coming from there. And so as you're going through this process as a young person, you're evaluating, sounds like some introspection taking place in there. And so you've got this process going on. What led you to the actual point where you said, I know God's called me into ministry?
To be honest, I don't think I got that I know feeling until I got rejected the first time. So I've been through the assessment.
So by rejected, what to explain to the people watching? So the Presbyterian Church has a process to be received as one of the ministers?
No, to be received into to be an intern.
To be an intern. And so the first time you applied, they turned you down.
So there's two things you have to do. You have to go through the regional.
Yes.
And put forward your documents, your call, articulate your call, say, this is why I feel God is calling me. And so the first one I got through the regional, and I got to national, and they said they couldn't discern my call.
Okay.
Which, looking back, I think that was 2014.
So they said they couldn't discern your call, but it was after that, then you begin to realize, oh, hang on, I actually am called.
They couldn't discern my call. And so I'm not one to blame other people for something happens. I'll first look at myself first and say, look, why couldn't they discern my call? I'm not going to blame them for not being able to discern my call. On me to articulate my call so that they can discern it. And that's why I was having trouble. And that's something I picked up, as growing up as a Pacific Islander, we're not ones to to really put ourselves out there and talk ourselves up, which I thought this process, they go, why do you think you're called? Well, to be honest, I don't feel like I'm 100% being called, maybe 50-50. I just wanted more confirmation to get to that 100. So I think that first rejection was a confirmation rather than a rejection.
It all makes sense. So when you explain it, it all makes sense. From their perspective, they're like, well, you don't even know you're called. So why should we, we can't. And so you're like, well, hang on, I am called now that you're saying I'm not. It's kind of funny.
To look back on it, but at the time it was quite it's a very tough moment, with
Oh, that's tough. So in this process, you were applying to become an interim minister, and they couldn't discern the call at first. And so that put you into, what did that do to your faith?
I think when I'm thinking back on it, because when I say my first rejection, because there was two more down the line afterwards.
Oh, really?
So that's the one that sort of confirmed me going again. But that's not the one that I think really shaped my faith to where it is now.
All right. So then let me pick up on that then. So you actually went through two more processes?
So because there's regional and national. So regional, I went through 4 regional assessments.
Okay.
I got through all of them except one. And then I went to 3 national assessments.
Okay.
I got, they couldn't discern my call twice, and then the third time last year. I just didn't give up.
Okay.
I came back after that first one and said, I feel like I need to, because I'm a first generation New Zealander, I can speak Samoan, but not, amazingly well to feel like I should go minister in a Samoan church. And so I felt I need to go to an English church so that not only my wife can understand, but I feel like it will help shape me.
Yeah, there's definitely a role, and Auckland is such a melting pot of different cultures. And I think what the last statistics, 40% of the people living in Auckland were born outside of New Zealand, and I know I'm one of them. And when they have children, they grow up, and a sense of belonging is really tough. What culture do they belong to? And it's in church, we'd like to think that church is the culture, and finding a place like that. But
that's good, because that's another big reason why I came to really confirm my calling.
Okay.
Is this issue of identity, and I think that's a big issue, not just with Pacific Islanders, but young people growing up anywhere.
Yes.
Everyone is our sense of identity.
Okay.
In the way, and so that's why I really, when we first came to St. John's, it's like, okay, I can feel there's a place here for us, for my wife and I.
Wow.
So as we kept coming, it just started to sort of form and change my thinking of what a minister is, because in the Presbyterian Church, St. John's doesn't look like Cleveland Presbyterian Church.
Mm-hmm.
Cleveland Presbyterian Church doesn't look like a Mount Albert Presbyterian Church.
Yeah.
St. Giles Presbyterian Church.
Yeah.
They all look different.
Yeah, that's the beauty people don't appreciate, is that the local church is allowed to have its own culture and worship in a way that it feels God would have them to do. We're not dictated how to do church from above. Yeah.
Confirmed with me, especially when I go to presbytery things, when I was invited, or I'll go to help out, all the different ministers were just so different from each other.
Wow.
They were just, and I said, hey, there's a space for me to be a minister, because I'm not saying if this person can be a minister, then I can be a minister. I'm saying if there's space for all these differences under our church and around Jesus' table, then there's space for me. And so that really put the confirmation when I came to St. John's and started to be part of St. John's, and also under Reverend Margaret Ann Lowe.
That's amazing. So this whole ministerial process, it seems to have strengthened your faith.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, my own walk with Jesus is always evolving, and it's ongoing, because that was going along as well as going along the process itself is the process.
Yeah.
But I could feel God's hand on me the whole time.
Amen. Presbyterians are very good at process.
We've got this whole big book about it.
Yes. Yeah. You're talking there, and I can't help but ask this question. You got any funny stories as a minister's kid of what you've seen about other Presbyterian ministers?
No, not funny stories, because again, I grew up in it, so it's just normal.
Is this normal?
We'll go to church, or we'll hang out with other ministers, and ministers are colleagues, and you probably know this as well. Outside of their role as a minister, they're just normal.
Yep.
And I remember waking up early on Monday mornings during school holidays and things, and my mother would take me with her to the golf course to be her caddy.
Yes.
All the other ministers were there, and they're all laughing and joking. This is their sort of time off. Whereas some ministers I only see preaching, and they're up there. They're very serious. They're very formal.
Yes.
And then out there on the Monday morning in golf course, they're just normal guys on the golf course. And so that's not a funny story, but it is a nice memory, and that's connecting with ministers on that level.
Yeah.
Again,
That's cool. Well, what would you say to any young person thinking about pursuing ministry?
I don't know if any young person would think of pursuing ministry. I don't know if 18-year-old says I want to be a minister. I think you got to sort of explore those motives, like why, because if I was 18 and said that, I hope someone would say why.
Yes.
But I think the thing is, what I'll say to someone that's just searching, just don't give up, don't lose hope.
Mm-hmm.
God has got a calling in your life, and it might not be the one you like, it might not be the one you think of, but don't lose faith.
Don't lose
Always,
faith. Amen.
don't lose faith. God's always with us, and we believe that as Christians, that God's with us, and it's easy for us to say that God is always with us, that we aren't alone. But sometimes we act like God isn't with us in hard times, and God's there with us in the fun times as well.
Yeah. Well, look, you're a ministerial student, and you've had a long process. What can St. John's Preparatory do going forward to encourage ministerial students?
Oh, I don't give a thought of that. I've never thought of. I mean, if that's just the focus of a parish, I mean, we always. I think the intake of ministerial students is declining. But I don't know what you can do. I think you just keep going, like I said before. Don't lose faith. Keep being St. John's Presbyterian Church.
Okay.
You don't know what we don't know what effect of what we say and our actions have on someone. It could be years down the track. We just keep being St. John's, whatever that means, and God will do the rest. So I don't have any advice about St. John's focus. But I'm saying I've enjoyed my time. I'm not going forever. I'm just going into the wilderness for a little bit.
Okay. Well, what are you looking forward to most in the wilderness?
Well, I'm very excited. Someone told me, "Oh, it's you shouldn't be excited. You should be really scared." And I was like, "No, I've been in church my whole life."
Yeah.
And I love seeing different expressions of worship.
Okay.
I love it. I love learning, and I love exploring why. And Cleveland Presbyterian looks like a very different church than I've ever been to before. And that excites me because I know that I can learn so much from there, not just about being a minister and the liturgy of the church and practicing preaching, but learn more about myself and about, most importantly, where God is guiding me. What does God want me to see? And I'm always open to that. Everyday life, if something happens and I have a moment to reflect on it, it's like, what would God have been telling me showing me this or by putting me here. And yeah, I visited Clevedon a couple of months ago before lockdown. I joined one of the parish council meetings just to introduce myself over Zoom. It
Yes.
seemed like a nice bunch. I'm very excited to go there. It's a
Neat.
bit of a drive, but that'll give me a lot of time for self-reflection, prayer, meditation, listening
Yes.
to music. Yeah.
Yes. Amen. Amen. I can understand that. One last question. What's the biggest blessing about serving at St. John's Preparatory?
I think again, it's this place where my wife and I can worship together
Okay.
is the biggest blessing. There's been many other blessings. Again, Reverend Margaret Ann Lowe has been an amazing mentor, leader, friend, and you coming along at the end of my time there has just given me rejuvenation. Looking forward, again, learning new expressions of our worship, of our faith, always makes me motivated. Another big blessing at St. John's is the fellowship of the people. There's a big, it's a big reason why we come. We can pray and worship at home or anywhere, but the fellowship that my wife and I have at St. John's has been another very big blessing to us, and we feel blessed every week.
Amen. Well, Paia, thank you so much for being here today and for taking the time just to have the chat. And I'm looking forward to continuing to work with you. Thank you for everything you do at St. John's, and the Lord bless you as we're going to have to let you go to Clevedon for a while. We're going to be praying for your wilderness experience.
Thank you very much.